My name is Walter Claiborne, and I'm 68 years old. I live alone in a quiet little retirement home just outside of Spokane, Washington. Most days, I tend to my little garden, watch old westerns, and drink my coffee black, just like I did back when I was working construction from sunup to sundown. I've always been a man of few needs and fewer words. But that night, I wish I had said something. I wish I had defended myself. It was my daughter-in-law's 35th birthday. Danica, that's her name. My son, Greg, married her 5 years ago after meeting her at some corporate networking thing in Seattle. She's all heels, handbags, and hashtags. Always dressed for an invisible camera. Always performing for some crowd that doesn't really exist. But I kept my mouth shut. I figured if my son loved her, I'd learn to like her. I saved up for her birthday gift. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to show respect. I don't have much, but I took a piece from my personal collection, an old, vintage music box I bought during my honeymoon with my late wife, Martha, back in 1981. It still played Unchained Melody when you twisted the crank. The wood had aged beautifully, and inside, I tucked a note. A piece of my past, now for your future. Welcome to the family. Walter. I wrapped it carefully, even polished it. That gift meant something. But when she unwrapped it, right there in front of all her fancy friends, she didn't even pretend to smile. She laughed, loud and shrill. "Oh my God, is this from like a thrift store?" She giggled, holding the box up like it was contagious. "It smells old." Her friends laughed. One woman even coughed and waved her hand in front of her nose. Then Danica raised her glass and toasted. To thoughtful gifts from another century. The room erupted. I just stood there, surrounded by glitter and Bluetooth speakers, staring at her perfectly manicured fingers holding the last piece of my marriage like it was junk. My son didn't say a word. He just sipped his drink, eyes on his phone. I felt something inside me snap, not in anger, but in grief. Like I'd been erased. I left the party before dessert. But that's not the end of it. Because 2 days later, Danica's parents showed up at my doorstep, holding the music box. And what they told me next changed everything. Long before I was the gray-haired man who got laughed at in a room full of strangers, I was someone else. A husband, a father, a builder. Before Danica, before smartphones, before pity smiles and quiet retirements. There was Martha Jean Claiborne, my best friend, my anchor, and the love of my damn life. We met at a 4th of July street fair in 1977. She had cherry soda on her lips and fire in her laugh. I was just a skinny guy in a baseball cap trying to win her a stuffed bear at the ring toss. I didn't win the bear, but I got her number. By the next year, we were married. By the year after that, we had Greg. Martha wanted a girl, but she always said our boy had her eyes and my stubborn heart. We didn't have much. I worked long days on site, pouring concrete and fixing roofs while Martha ran a little home-based sewing business. We made do, saved pennies in a cookie jar, and every now and then, we'd take a little trip, nothing fancy. No Paris, no cruises. Just us, a car, and the road. One of those trips was to Mount Rainier, right after our 5th anniversary. There was this tiny antique store near the lodge, the kind with creaky floors and a musty smell. That's where we found the music box. It was sitting alone on a dusty shelf. Hand-carved cherry wood with delicate brass hinges and a tiny ballerina that spun when the lid opened. It played Unchained Melody. We danced to that song in our living room every anniversary, no matter how tired we were. Martha used to say that the music box held our memories, like the wood soaked up love the way it held scent. I never believed in magic, but I believed in her. She passed in 2009. Cancer. I held her hand every day for 3 months until the end. She never once complained. Her last words to me were, "Don't become invisible, Walt." Live out loud. I tried. For a while. Greg was 25 when she died. He was already building his own life. At first, he visited every weekend. Then every other. Then not at all. I figure it was just life pulling him forward. It happens. Sons grow up. Then Danica happened. She came into our lives like a gust of wind, all perfume and plans. She shook everything up, and not in a good way. Suddenly, Greg stopped calling me dad and started saying things like, "Walter, I need you to be more flexible." She had a way of rewriting history, turning simple things into burdens. She called my home cramped. She called my stories outdated. And she called my music box smelly. But I kept quiet, because that's what Martha would have done. She always said, "Don't match ugly with ugly." So I gave Danica that music box, not because I thought she'd treasure it, but because I hoped maybe, just maybe, she'd feel the love that lived in it. Instead, she turned it into a punchline. And now, here I was, 2 days after her birthday party, sitting on my porch in the fading light, staring at her parents, who looked more serious than I'd ever seen them. Her mom held the music box like it was fragile. Her dad said, "Walter, we didn't know. We had no idea what this meant to you. But we read the note inside. We recognized the melody. And we think you should know." Danica didn't tell the whole story at that party. I blinked. "What do you mean?" Her mom looked me straight in the eye and said, "She didn't just trash the gift. She's been hiding something from Greg. Something you need to see for yourself." I stared at Danica's parents like they'd just told me the sun was fake. They sat on the porch swing across from me. Her mother, Lillian, holding the music box like it might break, and her father, Stanley, stiff as a fence post. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "What secret?" Lillian glanced at Stanley, then opened the box again. The ballerina twirled slowly, the melody soft in the warm evening air. "Walter, we recognized the music immediately. That song, Unchained Melody. It was our wedding song, too." I blinked, confused. Stanley added, "It's not just that, though. When Danica showed us the gift after the party, she was laughing. But when she went to the bathroom, Lillian opened the lid and found the note. She didn't read it out loud at the party," Lillian said gently. "She just made fun of the box. But the note you wrote, it was beautiful, Walter. Heartfelt. We were moved by it." I didn't say anything. I just looked at the box. Martha would have smiled, knowing someone finally saw the meaning behind it. Then Lillian said something that made my stomach twist. "There's something else you need to see. Something Greg hasn't seen, because Danica's been keeping it from him." She reached into her bag and handed me a thick manila envelope. Inside was a stack of papers and several photos. I thumbed through them slowly, my heart beginning to pound. Photos of Danica in restaurants with a man who wasn't my son. Late-night photos. Same guy, different clothes. Arms touching. Faces too close for just friends. Receipts for hotel stays. A prenup agreement Greg never mentioned. Credit card statements that showed thousands spent from a joint account. On designer bags, luxury spas, and 2 weekend trips Greg never went on. "She's been having an affair," Stanley said, low and steady, "with her boss. For almost a year now." I felt my mouth go dry. "And she made Greg sign a prenup that gives her full rights to their shared assets unless he is found to have cheated," Lillian continued. "But she's been careful. She deletes her messages, hides her tracks. She never thought anyone would find out." I sat back in my chair, stunned. Betrayal stung enough when it came from a stranger, but from inside your own home? They weren't done. "She trashed your gift not just because she didn't like it," Stanley said, "but because she was angry. She knew her affair might be exposed. The gift, your presence, it reminded her that family still has eyes. So she humiliated you before you could ever raise a voice." That's when it clicked. The laughs, the cold stares, the way Greg barely looked at me at the party. She wasn't just mocking me, she was isolating me. Like a wolf cutting off the slowest in the herd. Lillian leaned forward, her voice soft. "Walter, you don't deserve any of this. You gave your son everything. We came here because we know Danica's house of cards is about to fall. And when it does..." She placed a music box gently in my hands. "We want you to be ready." I sat there, the melody still faint in the breeze, my hands trembling. My heart didn't feel broken anymore. It felt ignited. I may be old. I may be slow. But I didn't raise my son to be fooled. And I sure as hell wasn't going to die silent. The next morning, I woke up before the sun rose. My old bones ached, but for the first time in years, I had fire in them. Something in me had changed overnight. I wasn't just Walter Claiborne, the retired old man with a creaky porch swing and fading photos. I was a father, and someone was hurting my son, I stood in my kitchen, coffee steaming in my mug, staring at the manila envelope. I had it all now proof. And for once, I had people in my corner. Lillian and Stanley might have raised Danica, but even they knew this wasn't right. That girl had become a stranger to them. They told me so before they left last night. With a quiet apology, neither of them owed me. But now, what to do? Greg didn't know. My son, the boy who once begged me to fix his toy fire truck at 3 a.m., who ran into my arms after his first heartbreak, was living in a lie. He looked so distant at that birthday party, like a guest in his own life. He wasn't the Greg I raised, but he wasn't going to hear the truth from me. Not yet. If I came out swinging, Danica would spin it. Make me sound like the bitter old man who couldn't move on. She'd probably call it elder manipulation, or say I was jealous of her lifestyle. First, I started spending time with Greg again, but casually. I called and told him I missed our old breakfasts, so we met at a diner just outside the city the following Saturday. He looked tired, worn down. I watched him stir sugar into his coffee without drinking it. The boy was barely holding it together. So, I said lightly, "How's married life treating you?" He gave me a small, crooked smile. "Busy." That was it. Just one word. Busy. Danica still working with that big consulting firm? He nodded. Yeah, always traveling. Always some gala or conference. She's a machine. That's when I dropped the first seed. I didn't even look up from my plate when I said, "You know, her folks came by the other day. Said she left a few things at their house. Funny thing, your mama and I used to do that all the time. Accidentally leave stuff behind. Love notes. Sometimes other things." I looked at him then, and for a flicker, just a moment, I saw it in his eyes. Suspicion. He changed the subject, but the seed was planted. Underscore, 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 underscore. And then came Sunday dinner. Greg and Danica invited me over. Probably out of guilt or show. She wore a tight red dress and called me Walt with that brittle smile. When she served me my food, I saw her flinch just a little when I placed the music box on the table beside my plate. I cranked it, let the ballerina spin. That song drifted into the air like it always had, but this time, it didn't comfort her. It rattled her. She knocked over her wine glass. Greg looked at her, startled. She mumbled something about being clumsy. That's when I said it. Calm, easy, like I was asking for more potatoes. "Danica, when you were at the Hilton last week, did you happen to find the charger I left there on the dresser?" She froze. Her fork didn't reach her mouth. Greg looked between us. "You were in Seattle?" She stammered. What charger?" "The one next to the silver cufflinks," I said. "I think your boss left those behind too." Silence. She stood up, her face pale. "Excuse me." She rushed down the hall. Greg just stared at me. "What's going on, Dad?" I slid the folder across the table. My voice shook, but I didn't break. "I didn't come here to hurt you, son. I came to give you what no one gave me that night at the party. The truth." He opened it, slowly, and I watched his world shift behind his eyes. Greg flipped through the folder slowly, like each page was cutting deeper than the last. His hands trembled. His face shifted from confusion to disbelief to something harder. Something I hadn't seen on him since he was a teenager with a broken bike and scraped knees. Pure heartbreak. He set the folder down, pushed his plate away, and just sat there, staring into nothing. I didn't say a word. I let the silence breathe. Let him process it all. Because what do you say to your own son when he realizes the woman he gave his life to have been living a double one? A few minutes later, Danica came back into the room. Her makeup was flawless, but her eyes were sharp, guarded. She saw the open folder on the table. And just like that, the show began. "What is that?" she asked, voice pitched higher than usual. Greg didn't even blink. "You tell me," he said. Her eyes darted to me, then back to him. "Are you seriously listening to him? He's been trying to turn you against me for years." That music box stunt. Greg slammed his hand down on the table. Not violently, but hard enough to make her flinch. "Stop. Don't deflect. Just tell me the truth." She folded her arms. "You're acting crazy." I stood up, slow and steady. "I'll leave you two alone." "No," Greg said, almost a whisper. "Stay." Danica's voice turned cold. "This is our marriage, Greg. Not a courtroom. And definitely not his business. Greg's eyes stayed on her. He's my father. He's the only one here who hasn't lied to me. She looked at him like she didn't recognize him. You knew about the prenup, he said. Why didn't you tell me you were seeing someone else? Why did you keep spending our money like it was yours alone? Danica sighed. Look, I was lonely, okay? You were always working, always tired. I needed something, someone who actually understood where I'm going. Greg's voice cracked. And you thought you'd just lie? Steal? Humiliate the man who raised me? She looked at me now, eyes like knives. This was your plan, wasn't it, Walter? Come in here like some hero and destroy our marriage. I met her gaze. Calm, steady. You did that all by yourself, sweetheart. All I did was shine a light on the wreckage. She scoffed. You're just bitter because your old trinket didn't get a standing ovation. I chuckled softly. That old trinket was the last thing I bought for my wife before she died. It's been in our family longer than you've known my son. It meant something real, but you wouldn't recognize real if it danced on your birthday cake. That was it. Greg stood up. You need to go. Danica froze. What? He pointed to the door. Pack a bag. Go to your mother's. We're your bosses. I don't care, but you're not staying here tonight. Her jaw dropped. You're kicking me out. You can't do that. This is my house too. He looked at her, eyes full of steel. Yeah, but my name is the one on the deed. I bought this house before I met you. The room fell silent again. She stared at me, then at Greg. Then, without another word, she stormed down the hall and slammed the bedroom door. Greg sat down slowly, rubbing his temples. The man looked like a storm just blew through him. She always made me feel like I was the boring one, he said quietly, like she was doing me a favor just by staying. I laid a hand on his shoulder. Love doesn't make you small, son. It makes you better, stronger. He nodded, tears starting to form. I should have listened to you, he whispered. I squeezed his shoulder. No, you needed to see it yourself. And now you have. We sat there for a while, just the two of us. No noise, no lies, just truth, finally finding a seat at the table. And outside, through the kitchen window, the old music box still played, its melody gentle, but unshakable. Danica didn't leave that night. She stayed locked in the bedroom, probably texting her friends and scheming about her next move. But Greg didn't check on her. He slept on the couch. His back was turned to the hallway all night, like a soldier who knew the enemy was in the house but refused to look it in the eye. I stayed in the guest room, didn't sleep much. Instead, I listened, heard her pacing, heard drawers opening, phone calls whispered. At one point, around 2 a.m., I heard her crying. But the thing is, I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt sorry for Greg. The next morning, just as the sun was coming up, Danica emerged from the bedroom dressed in a tailored gray suit and high heels that clicked like thunder across the tile floor. She didn't even glance at me. She walked straight to Greg, who was sipping his coffee in silence. We need to talk, she said coolly. He didn't answer, just nodded toward the porch. They stepped outside. I watched through the curtain, heart beating slow and heavy like a war drum. Her hands were waving. Her voice got louder. I could see the act unraveling in real time. Then Greg said something. She froze. That's when she turned back toward the door, stormed inside, and shoved a stack of papers into my chest. I spoke to my lawyer this morning, she said. You interfered with my marriage, with my private affairs. That's harassment. You took photos of me without permission, shared personal documents. Do you know what that means legally? I stared down at the papers. Empty threats, full of smoke, all bluff. You're bluffing, I said calmly. You know it. I know it. And you forgot one thing. What's that? She snapped. You picked the wrong old man. She narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? I smiled gently. It means I recorded everything you said last night. I may be 68, but I know how to use a phone. I also made copies of those photos and receipts. If you want a war, sweetheart, you'll be standing in court trying to explain how you burned through 10 grand of Greg's savings while having an affair. Not me. She stepped back, stunned. Don't test me, I said. You gotta play your game. Now it's my turn. That's when Greg walked in. He looked at her, really looked at her, and asked just one question. Did you ever actually love me? Her mouth opened, then closed. I thought so, he said. Danica stared at the both of us, then grabbed her purse and stormed out without another word. Later that afternoon, I met Greg out in the backyard. He was sitting in the grass with an old photo album I hadn't seen in years. Photos of him and Martha, him on my shoulders, us at Yellowstone, Martha in her big sunglasses, and me in a ridiculous tank top. He looked up at me. "Why didn't I see it?" he whispered. I sat beside him. "Because you believed in her. That's not weakness. That's love." He nodded, his eyes red. "You were right," he said. "About everything. About Danica. About what matters." Then he opened the music box. That song filled the backyard, soft as memory. He stared at the ballerina turning round and round. "I want to be the kind of man she'd be proud of," he said. "Mom, you already are," I said. That evening, the phone rang. It was Lillian, Danica's mother. She'd heard about what happened, about Danica leaving. "She's furious," she told me. "But maybe it's what she needed. Maybe this will wake her up." I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I said, "Lillian, you raised a smart girl. But even smart people lose their way." She sighed. "And sometimes they need someone older and wiser to help them find it again." Maybe not. But one thing was certain. I wasn't invisible anymore. Not to my son, not to the truth, and certainly not to her. For the first time in years, I woke up without that dull weight pressing on my chest. Not from grief, not from age, just peace. It was quiet. No more passive-aggressive jabs. No more forced family dinners. No more walking on eggshells in a house that once felt like mine, but had slowly been taken over by someone else's cold, perfect world. Danica was gone, and in her absence, something strange was happening. Greg was coming back to life. It started small. He called me that week, twice, just to talk. Then he dropped by the retirement home with barbecue and a six-pack, the way he used it before she got in his head. We sat on the porch, eating ribs with our fingers, laughing like we hadn't in years. "This place is kinda peaceful," he said, looking around. "It's quiet," I said. "Sometimes that's all a man needs." Then he looked at me and asked, "How did you do it? After Mom passed, how did you stay kind? How did you not let the pain harden you?" I took a deep breath, because she wouldn't have wanted me to grow bitter. And because every time life kicked me down, your face brought me back up. His eyes welled up. "I let her change me, Dad," he said. "I didn't even realize it until you stepped in." I didn't say anything, just handed him a napkin and let him sit in it. That was the thing about Greg. He was always a good man. He just needed room to remember it. But Danica wasn't done. A week later, a friend from my church quilting group texted me. "Walter, is everything okay? Danica just posted a video saying you've been emotionally manipulating Greg for years." I blinked, opened the post. Sure enough, there she was, in full makeup, soft lighting, sad piano music in the background. Danica's face filled the screen. "I tried," she said tearfully, "but Greg's father never accepted me. He gave me a broken-down music box as a gift and told me I'd never measure up to his late wife. I've been suffering in silence, but now I need to speak up for myself. For all daughters-in-law who've been emotionally bullied by controlling in-laws." Over 12,000 views, hundreds of comments, some siding with her, many questioning her, and a few digging deeper. The internet had a funny way of sniffing out lies. One comment said, "I saw Greg's dad speak at a community event last year. The man barely talks above a whisper. Doesn't look like someone trying to manipulate anybody." Another said, "Who records someone else's birthday gift reveal for social media, then trashes it, then calls herself the victim?" And then Lillian chimed in. Danica's own mother, right there in the comments, wrote, "This is not the full story. My husband and I were there. We support Greg's father. Please don't jump to conclusions. Things are more complicated than they appear." And just like that, the tide turned. But I didn't post anything. I didn't comment, I didn't argue, and I certainly didn't try to go viral with my side of the story. That wasn't my way. Instead, I went to the community center. There was a storytelling night. Seniors were invited to share meaningful memories. I brought the music box. When it was my turn, I stood up slowly, walked to the microphone, and said, This belonged to my wife. We danced to it every anniversary. It still plays, even after all these years. Love like that doesn't fade. And sometimes, when we give a piece of our past to someone new, we're not trying to control them. We're trying to include them. Then I cranked the box, let the melody play through the speakers. The whole room went silent. And when I looked out into the crowd, I saw tears, smiles, nods. No one said a word, but I didn't need them to, because I'd already won. Not through shouting, not through revenge, through grace. Danica always lived loud, louder than the truth, louder than love, louder than consequences. But in the end, it wasn't a scandal, a courtroom, or some grand confrontation that undid her. It was silence. The kind of silence that seeps in when no one is clapping anymore, when no one believes you. 2 weeks after her emotional video went live, she posted again, this time defensive. She claimed her words had been twisted, that she never named names, and that everyone's just misinterpreting her feelings. The views dropped. So did the sympathy. What she didn't know was that Greg had quietly filed for divorce the same day she uploaded that second video. He stopped by my place the next morning with a cardboard box full of papers and a quiet look in his eyes. "It's done," he said. I nodded. "You sure?" He sat down slowly. "She made it about everyone but herself," he said. "Even now, she's not sorry. She's embarrassed. There's a difference." I handed him a mug of coffee and let the moment settle. "Lillian called me," he added. "She said Danica's back at their place, sulking. Says she wants another chance. Says she wants to go to therapy, fix things." I waited. He shook his head. I told her no. I said, "I think I married the wrong person. And now I'm trying to find my way back to the man I was before she came along." "And who's that?" I asked gently. He looked up at me, and this time he didn't flinch. "Your son." A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just my name. Inside was a small photo, me and Martha, dancing in our living room, back when the carpet was still new and my hair still black. Underneath, in sharp handwriting, I never understood what that box meant until I saw this photo. "I'm sorry I mocked it. I wasn't ready to receive something so full of love. I hope one day I grow into the kind of woman Martha was." Danica. There was no apology for the cheating, no request for forgiveness, just a tiny crack in her armor, a sliver of truth. And somehow that was enough. A month later, Greg surprised me again, this time with something bigger than a box of papers. He picked me up early one Saturday and drove us out to a little patch of land on the edge of town. "Remember this place?" he asked. I squinted. "Isn't this where you used to fish with me when you were a kid?" He nodded. "I bought it." My eyebrows lifted. "You bought it?" He smiled. "Yeah, I'm gonna build something here. Not a mansion, not a palace, just a home, a real one, maybe with a screened porch, maybe a swing set one day." I felt tears prick the edges of my eyes. He looked over at me. "And I want you there, not just for holidays. I want you in my life again." And that night, as we sat on lawn chairs staring at the stars, I opened the music box one more time. The melody danced on the wind. Gentle, steady, timeless. "You think Mom would be proud?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "She'd say, 'Took you long enough.'" We both laughed. But deep down, I knew Martha was here. In the music, in the air, in the second chances we finally gave ourselves. And so, the final blow wasn't revenge. It wasn't public disgrace. It was quiet restoration. A father and son, broken by life, stitched back together by truth. 6 months later, the land Greg bought had transformed into something beautiful. It wasn't just wood and nails anymore. It had a heartbeat. There was a porch with a swing, just like the one at our old house. A fireplace built with stones Greg picked himself. And in the front yard, a narrow path made from reclaimed bricks, each one etched with a memory, a name, or a date from our family's past. And inside, warmth. Not the kind you get from heating vents and insulation. The kind that hums quietly between the walls when the people inside know who they are and where they come from. __. Greg moved in officially that November. Not long after, he hosted a second chance Thanksgiving. He invited a few close friends, some neighbors, and, much to my surprise, Lillian, and Stanley. I wasn't sure how to feel at first, but when I saw Stanley carrying in 2 pumpkin pies and Lillian wrapping her arms around Greg like she hadn't in years, I felt something settle deep in my chest. Peace. At dinner, Greg raised his glass and said, "This year, I'm thankful for mistakes, because they taught me how to see what matters, and for second chances, because they gave me back the man I want to become." He looked at me when he said it, and I'll tell you this, even old men cry. We just do it quietly into our mashed potatoes. The next few weeks were filled with sawdust, stories, and slow healing. I'd visit Greg's place a few times a week, mostly under the excuse of helping with something, but really just to be near him. One morning, he handed me a small wooden box, new, polished, but familiar. "I made this," he said. "It's not much, but I wanted it to feel like home." I opened it. Inside was a note, just like the one I had written to Danica all those months ago. Only this one said, "A piece of our past, now part of my future. Thank you for never giving up on me, Greg." And under it, a photo of me and Martha, and right beside it, a new photo of me and Greg, standing in front of the half-finished house, tools in hand, sawdust in our hair, smiling like fools. The music box wasn't just a symbol anymore. It had become a torch, passed from one generation to the next. A reminder that love endures, even when it's laughed at, even when it's thrown away. In December, the local community center held their annual Winter Stories Night, an event where folks came to share something meaningful. Greg signed us up together. When we got up there, he took the mic and said, "This is my dad, Walter. He taught me how to build things, homes, fences, and eventually myself again. A while ago, someone tried to humiliate him with a gift that came from the heart. But instead of getting bitter, he got stronger. And because of that, I found my way back to him. Tonight, I want to share that gift with all of you." He opened the box. The music played. And just like that first night at the center, the whole room went still. Only this time, it wasn't just silence. It was understanding. A few people cried. Some clapped. Most just sat there, eyes closed, letting the melody carry them somewhere safe. That night, as we loaded up the truck to head home, Greg turned to me and said, "I used to think strength meant never needing anyone. But now I know real strength is loving anyway, even when it hurts." I nodded. "Your mama would be proud," I said. He smiled. "Yeah, I think she's here. Every time that box plays, I feel her." And we drove home in quiet peace, the stars blinking above us like they knew something we didn't. Time has a way of softening even the sharpest edges. By spring, the trees around Greg's new home were blooming, peach and cherry blossoms reaching for the sky like they had something to say. Greg had started volunteering with a local youth mentorship program, helping fatherless boys learn how to use tools, build birdhouses, fix up bikes. I'd come along sometimes just to watch him. I never said much. I didn't have to. Watching him laugh with those boys, patiently showing them how to sand wood or tighten a bolt, it told me everything. He'd become the kind of man I always hoped he'd be. One sunny afternoon, I got a call from the community center. The director, a kind woman named Jolene, asked if I could stop by. "It's nothing bad," she said with a laugh. "Just something I think you should see." I arrived to find her standing near the bulletin board at the entrance, a small wooden plaque in her hand. "We wanted to honor what you brought to this community," she said. "That night you played the music box. We had more people stay after the event than ever before, and people still talk about it." She handed me the plaque. Engraved on the front, it read, "In honor of Walter Claiborne, who reminded us that love, like music, never grows old." Below it, a small brass crank had been mounted. When turned, it played a few notes of unchained melody. I didn't say a word. I just stared at it, blinking back tears. Jolene smiled. "We're placing it in the storytelling room. So even when you're not here, the music will be." That night, Greg and I sat on his back porch, stars scattered like confetti overhead. He handed me a small, gift-wrapped box. "It's not your birthday," I said. "I know," he smiled. "Open it anyway." Inside was a new music box, but different from the first. It was carved from oak, stained with a deep red finish, and lined with velvet. I opened it, and it didn't play Unchained Melody. It played a recording of Greg's voice. To my father, for teaching me how to live with integrity, for standing tall when the world tried to make him small, for never letting bitterness win. This melody is new because our story isn't over. It's just beginning. I love you. I cover my mouth. My heart ached in the best way. I figured, he said softly, that if we were going to pass something down, it should carry both of us now. A few weeks later, Greg hosted another community gathering, this one called Gifts That Matter. People brought objects from their lives that held deep meaning. A soldier's letter, a grandmother's quilt, a broken wedding ring turned into a necklace. Each story wove a tapestry of love, loss, and learning. When it was my turn, I walked to the front with the new music box. I once gave this kind of gift to someone who didn't understand it. It was mocked, thrown aside, but that same gift made its way back to me. Stronger, fuller, and now I share it not out of pain, but gratitude. Because love, real love, always finds its way home.